Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. Convoy ops are usually boring. You sit, you sweat, you check your rifle. You wait for someone to screw up spacing so you can yell at them. That morning should have been the same. We were rolling into Caldwell. Orders said, riot control. I sat behind the driver, gear cutting into my shoulders, 4 bricks of C4 in my bag, det cord looped neat, blasting caps taped in a tin, an entrenching tool folded and strapped to my ruck. My M4 sat across my lap. I touched each thing in order, the way you do when your stomach already knows something's off. Beside me, PFC Torres had a comic book open across his knee, balancing it on top of his plates. The Walking Dead. I remember because he tapped the page and said, "Bet it won't look like this." I told him to shut up, but he was right. It didn't. The closer we got, the quieter it got. First it was just fewer cars. Then they were empty, doors hanging open. Then the bodies, not covered neatly like accidents. These had been dragged, left half on the curb, half in the street. A woman lay with one shoe on, one off, her sock stained black at the heel. The smell came next, clinging sweet and heavy, like rot left out in the sun. "Stay sharp," the squad leader said over comms. Nobody laughed. We stopped at the bridge. 2 lanes wide, concrete guardrails, cars smashed nose to nose like they'd been shoved together on purpose. A city truck sideways, sandbags spilling out of the bed. An ambulance jammed into the mess, windshield cracked but holding. I climbed out, boots crunching glass, and the heat hit hard enough to sting my eyes. We started clearing. Hook a tow strap, check the cars, push metal where we could. The air was too still. I could hear water under the bridge and the sound of Torres turning a comic page behind me. That stupid sound stuck. Then came the thump inside the ambulance. At first it was soft, like something shifting. Then again, harder. A bloody palm slammed against the cracked glass. Fingers clawed. Torres muttered, "That's not in the handbook." Another shape hit next to it, face pressed flat, teeth scraping. The glass bulged and shattered, raining safety glass in tiny cubes. 3 bodies spilled out with it. Gray faces, jaws working like broken hinges. They didn't scream. They just moved, straight for us. "Contact front," the SL barked. Rifles snapped up. We fired. Rounds slammed into chests, jerking them back, but they kept coming. One had his jaw hanging loose, bone poking through, teeth rattling like dice. He hit the hood of the Humvee and slid forward, clawing. I shoved him off and swung my E-tool. The steel edge crunched through skull like splitting a frozen roast. Hard resistance, then a wet give. Fluid sprayed my sleeve. His body shuddered once, then collapsed. The medic screamed. One of the things had tackled him, teeth sunk deep into his wrist. Blood pumped bright against his camo. I ripped it off him and jammed my rifle up under its chin, firing. Its skull burst in a spray that rained across the bumper. The medic cradled his arm, breathing fast. "I'm fine," he lied. We all knew better. We dragged him up as engines roared. The first truck nosed through the lane we'd cleared, tires hissing over blood. More zombies crawled from the wrecks, hands bloody, teeth clicking. Shadows moved deeper on the bridge, too many shapes to count. The lieutenant's voice snapped on comms. "We're through. Move now." We piled back in as rounds cracked, convoys surging across the bridge. I looked once over my shoulder. More of them were spilling into the lane, climbing over hoods and guardrails, their movements wrong and jerky but fast enough to close. Torres shut his comic, slid it into his plate carrier. He didn't joke again. We thought we'd cleared the way. Caldwell wasn't going to let anyone through without a price. The convoy was supposed to move smooth once the lane was clear. Instead, the last 5-ton clipped the ambulance we'd shoved and wedged itself tight. Engines screamed, tires spinning, going nowhere. "Back it off," the squad leader barked, voice hot in my headset. I sprinted to the pinch. Zombies were crawling over hoods now, faces gray, jaws swinging, moving like pain didn't exist. I hooked a new toe strap while Torres covered me, his rifle popping short bursts. The Humvee pulled, strap whining like a guitar string ready to snap. The ambulance jerked sideways, tires shrieking. The 5-ton freed itself with a metallic crack, lane open again. But the noise brought more. They poured from between cars like they'd been waiting under there, teeth clacking, bone fingers scraping. One slammed into me, heat and stink and too much weight. We fell into spilled sandbags. His teeth snapped at my ear. I jammed my forearm under his throat and shoved. Knife out. I drove it up under his jaw. It hit bone, skated, then pushed through with a wet crunch. Hot blood sprayed my thumb as he twitched out. I rolled him off, came up firing. Torres nailed another through the temple, scalp folding like paper. "Last truck's moving," someone yelled. The gap we'd made started filling with bodies. They didn't hesitate. They used their dead-like steps, crawling over one another. It looked wrong, like ants bridging water. That image has never left me. "Engineer," SL's voice cut through. "Your fail-safe, now." I yanked the igniter from my pocket, eyes tracing the orange tape marking my line along the rail. Zombies were already spilling into it, arms hooked over twisted steel. The 5-ton finally roared past, convoy rolling hard. I waited a beat, then squeezed. The world snapped white. The bridge shook underfoot, air punching my chest. Concrete teeth shredded outward. Rebar lashed like whips. Bodies tore in chunks. An arm spiraling into the river. A torso flopping wet on asphalt. Legs folding at the knee midair. One landed close, jaw clacking twice before it went still. When dust cleared, a crater gaped across the lane. A few zombies crawled, bones jutting, dragging themselves forward. Then more spilled in, piling until their own corpses made a ramp. "Back to trucks," SL shouted. We sprinted. The medic stumbled but kept pace, his taped wrist already turning purple. He didn't say a word. Torres was pale, comic stuffed deep in his vest, eyes wide but steady. We piled into the Humvee. Doors slammed, engines roared, convoy surging across the last stretch. I looked out the back window as the bridge disappeared behind us. Zombies kept coming, spilling through dust and smoke, climbing over the dead like the dead were just part of the road. Caldwell spread ahead, Brick buildings, empty streets, flags sagging wrong on their poles. A police cruiser sat crashed nose first into a bakery, its light still flashing red-blue, red-blue. People were at windows, curtains pulled tight in their fists. Some waved, some just stared like we were the monsters. "City Hall," the lieutenant said flat. "We set up there. Engineers, barricades as soon as rubber stops." I touched the last blasting cap in my pocket and tried to swallow the taste of copper in my throat. We weren't leaving Caldwell. Caldwell was swallowing us whole. City Hall sat on a wide square, stone steps rising to double doors. It looked strong, solid, safe. We all knew that was a lie, but soldiers live on lies when the other option is panic. "Engineers, wall this off," the lieutenant ordered. "2 trucks here. Planters, benches, whatever you find. This is the box. Hold it." That was my language. Building break. Make the ground choose sides. We hot-wired a forklift from a maintenance yard, key still in it, God bless city workers, and dragged pallets of sandbags into a line. Planters tipped and rolled, dirt spilling, roots dangling like hair. 2 benches flipped and chained into a makeshift gate. Not pretty, functional. Civilians came out when they saw uniforms. A man with a Greg patch on his shirt, a woman in a church dress and sneakers, a teen with arms shaking under a sandbag. They didn't wait to be asked. They stacked, lifted, carried. Fear makes good labor. We welded doors shut with a borrowed torch. Sparks hissed on the stone. I taped det cord across the stairwell inside City Hall. Last resort if the doors gave. The medic worked one-handed, sweat dripping, tape around his wrist already spotted dark. His fingers looked swollen, turning purple. He didn't talk, just lifted, just breathed through his teeth. Power died before dusk. Whole city went quiet at once. No hum of lights, no AC, no neon. We started a generator, but it sounded like a dinner bell. Work lights swung, shadows stretching. I cracked chem lights instead, hung them low. Enough to see, not enough to advertise. The first zombies found us near sunset. One in a firefighter's coat, helmet gone, face black from smoke. He tried to push through a planter like stone was air. We dropped him with 3 rounds. Another, a woman in a red dress, barefoot, teeth bloody, staggered up to the chain and gnawed metal until her gums bled. A shot under the eye stopped her. Then they came steady. Not fast, not in waves, just constant. Hands slapping stone, teeth clicking, bodies pressing. They stacked at the east lane, shoving each other through. One man jammed at the hips, the ones behind him pushing harder until his middle gave out. His top half crawled forward, dragging intestines like rope. Torres swore under his breath and shot him twice before the crawling stopped. The wall worked. Sand settled. Stone held. The forklift became part of the barricade. Forks angled out like spears, but the pressure didn't stop. They just kept pressing. By dark, the square smelled like pennies and hot rubber. Civilians were crying behind the wall. Greg muttered prayers under his breath. The teen dropped a sandbag and hugged his knees. The medic sat on the steps, staring at his hand. His fingers weren't moving anymore. He met my eyes once and said, "Don't let me walk around in my boots." I told him I wouldn't. I meant it. We checked arcs, taped more caps, clipped lifelines from truck seat belts so no one got dragged. Every sound carried: the generator rattle, the scrape of fingernails, the moan of too many throats. Torres tapped the comic tucked in his vest. He didn't open it this time, just looked at the cover in the chem light and said, "They never draw the smell." He was right. The wall held, but so did the crowd. Every beat of silence felt bought, not given. At midnight, I realized the truth. The barricade wasn't just keeping zombies out. It was keeping us in. We thought the barricade would last the night. It didn't. The sound came first, a helicopter low, rotors chopping air like a heartbeat. Every head in the square tilted up. The searchlight swept once, caught a line of zombies at the far block, then cut out. The bird wobbled. A second later, it clipped the top of a building. The crash felt like the sky punched us. The helicopter pinwheeled, shedding parts, and slammed into the block just east of City Hall. The fuel tank went up in a blossom of orange that painted the stone square. The concussion knocked sandbags off the wall. Fire licked across the street, crawling into the barricade. Flames meant light. Light meant a feeding bell. Zombies turned their faces toward the glow and pressed harder. They didn't scream, didn't hesitate, just shoved until their jaws scraped stone. One got through a corner we hadn't reinforced, shoulders slipping between planters. Torres dropped him with a shot through the nose, but more were already in the gap. "Hold that line," the lieutenant barked. But we all saw the fire chewing into sandbags, melting the forklift tires, black smoke coiling into the square. "Sir, the wall's gone," I said, chest tight. "We need to fall back." He hesitated, just a breath, long enough that 3 more zombies spilled through and tore into a civilian. The man's scream turned to gurgling before anyone could aim. "Retreat," SL said. "Break east toward the park." We moved fast, trained speed, not panic but close. Cover fire in short bursts, muzzle flashes snapping against the firelight. I grabbed blasting caps from Torres, taped a pair into the base of a planter, and snapped a det cord line with shaking hands. It wasn't neat. It didn't need to be. "Fire in the hole," I called, then popped the cap. The blast tore the planter sideways, spilling dirt and concrete chunks into the lane. It slowed the push, bought maybe 20 seconds, enough to get clear. We fell back through the streets. Caldwell looked like a war movie. Glass crunching under boots, storefronts black with soot, shadows moving in alleys. Civilians ran with us, tripping, grabbing our sleeves. Some made it, some didn't. The ones that fell didn't get back up. The medic stumbled near the rear, clutching his taped wrist. His face had gone sheet white. He leaned into a wall and dry heaved, nothing coming up. I grabbed his vest and yanked him forward. "Don't you quit on me." He nodded, teeth clenched. His fingers weren't fingers anymore. They hung like swollen sausages. I knew. He knew. Nobody said it. We cut through a side street and hit an industrial block. Warehouses, chain link fences, a fuel depot with rusted tanks. It smelled like oil and dust and old rubber. "This is it," SL said. "We hold here until evac." There wouldn't be an evac. We all knew that too. But the depot had fences, tanks, a line of cargo containers. More material than City Hall ever gave us. I set my bag down, pulled fresh bricks of C4 and started laying charges along the tank base, not to destroy them yet, just in case. Insurance. Torres leaned against a container, chest heaving. He pulled the comic halfway out, stared at the cover, then shoved it back like the sight made him sick. "They never write about this part," he muttered. "What part?" I asked, not looking up from my tape. "The running, the leaving people behind." I didn't answer. There wasn't one. Behind us, the fire still climbed, painting Caldwell in flickers of orange. We could hear the wall of zombies hitting the empty square, the sound of a crowd without words. And beneath that, closer every second, their feet on pavement, their jaws snapping, their breath pulling in and out like wind in a broken instrument. The medic sat down hard on the curb, hand in his lap, eyes glassy. He looked at me once. "Remember what I said?" I nodded. My throat wouldn't work enough to answer. The night wasn't over, not even close. But the safe house was gone. The sky was just starting to gray when the first real wave hit. Not a trickle this time, not steady pressure. A wave. They came down the street in a wall, hundreds, maybe more. Shuffling, sprinting, crawling, all of them pushing toward the depot fence. The chain link rattled, bent, sagged. Hands reached through, tearing skin on steel. The sound wasn't screaming anymore. It was breathing. Hundreds of throats dragging air in and out in broken rhythm. "Positions," the lieutenant shouted. His voice cracked. We stacked behind cargo containers and sandbag lines, rifles barking. Rounds punched through faces and chests, zombies jerking and toppling, but more climbed over the bodies like ants. A man in a hospital gown ran headfirst into the fence until his skull split and still tried to push through. A woman in a blood-soaked prom dress clawed until her fingernails tore off, then shoved her raw fingertips through the mesh. The medic was propped against a tank, pale as chalk. His bandaged wrist was black now, swollen to the elbow. He looked at me once, calm in a way I'll never understand. "Now," he said. I knew what he meant. I put my rifle down and crouched. His eyes didn't blink. I drew my pistol and pressed it to his temple. My hand shook. He smiled, just barely, like I'd done him a kindness. The shot was quick, one sharp pop under the roar. He slumped, and that was it. I didn't have time to grieve. None of us did. The fence collapsed under the weight of bodies, zombies pouring through the gap in a flood. "Engineer," SL said. "On it," I called back. I ran along the tanks, slapping charges onto valves and piping, taping det cord in long lines. It wasn't elegant. It was fast and ugly. My gloves stuck with oil and blood. I primed 3 caps, crimped them rough, taped igniters side by side. This was no controlled demo. This was a fuel-air bomb waiting to kick half of Caldwell into the sky. Torres covered me, firing until his rifle clicked, then jamming a fresh mag home with bloody hands. "Hurry!" he shouted, voice breaking. Zombies surged over the containers. One hit Torres square in the chest. They went down in a tangle, teeth snapping. I lunged, swinging my entrenching tool. The steel edge smashed through the zombie's temple, bone collapsing with a wet crack. Torres shoved the body off, panting hard. "Thanks," he muttered. "Don't thank me yet." I said, shoving the last igniter into place. The horde was inside now, spilling between tanks, climbing over pallets. Gunfire turned frantic. Men screamed. Civilians sobbed. I grabbed Torres's plate carrier and dragged him toward the Humvee. Fall back. Everyone fall back. SL bellowed. We sprinted, boots sliding on blood-slick pavement. Zombies were everywhere, on fences, on tanks, crawling under trucks. One grabbed my sleeve and I tore free, leaving fabric in its hand. We dove into the Humvee as the driver gunned the engine. The convoy roared to life, vehicles slamming through the last gate. I pulled the detonator cord tight in my fist. The line hummed, live and waiting. My thumb hesitated, just for a second, enough to feel the weight of everything. The medic's body, Ed humming in the square, the town that had begged us for help. Then I squeezed. The world turned white. The tanks went up in a chain, one after another, fireballs blossoming like suns. The blast swallowed half the block, ripping steel into shrapnel, vaporizing anything close. The shockwave punched the Humvee, lifted it onto two wheels, then slammed it back down. Windows shattered, ears rang. Heat rolled over us in a tidal wave. Through the smoke, I saw them burn. Zombies staggered in fire, skin sloughing, jaws still chewing until they collapsed into ash. Others were blown apart, limbs raining, torsos flung into walls. The horde was a bonfire now, Caldwell lit like hell itself. We didn't cheer, we just drove. The convoy tore down a side street, smoke trailing, the city behind us glowing red. The fire didn't just eat zombies, it ate everything. Caldwell was gone. I leaned back in the seat, ears ringing, skin tacky with blood that wasn't mine. Torres stared at the comic in his lap. The cover was warped from sweat and smoke. He didn't open it, he just held it, shaking. The lieutenant spoke finally, voice low. We held 12 hours. That's all we were asked for. I looked back once at the burning skyline, the smoke clawing into dawn, and I knew it wasn't contained. Caldwell was just the start.